Good morning, everyone. This is the Historic Resources Commission special meeting being held on Friday, May 12th, 2017. It is now called to order at 9:36 a.m. Good morning to my fellow commissioners. I want to thank you all for attending this special meeting. I also want to welcome our guests to the special meeting of the Historic Resources Commission. I'd like to make a couple comments before we get started. This special meeting is being held to address two agenda items. The first agenda item, number 3, under public hearing items, will have 2 action items to vote on. The second agenda item, number 4, under new business, is informational only and has no action items. This meeting is being held in a different room, so I'd like to go over the procedure for public comments so everyone is clear on the procedure. Once the public comments period is open, each speaker will have 1 opportunity for their comments with a 3-minute limit. There will be a timer that will buzz at the 2-minute mark and then continuous beeping at the end of the 3 minutes. And you will also have those lights on the podium there, green, yellow, and red. Please step up to the podium, introduce yourself if you wish to make a comment during the public comment periods. Each speaker must address the commission only and not the staff or other members in the audience. Please do not cross-talk. The commission can choose to respond to questions asked during the public comments period or not, or wait until after the public comment period has ended and the agenda topic is brought back to the board when the board can ask the staff for more information. And with that, I would like to start our meeting. Agenda item number 1 is roll call. So, Commissioner Alverda? Here. Commissioner Miriam? Here. Commissioner Swift? Here. Commissioner Jenkins? Here. And Commissioner Phillips? Here. Is there any modification to the agenda? Any comments? All right, could I have a motion to approve the agenda for this special meeting?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda for this special meeting.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And the motion to approve this agenda is passed. So moving on to public hearing items number 3, we are making a motion to consider rescinding the previous approval of the amendment to the, just one second. Do I need to read the application numbers?
Yes, and then we'll have staff.
Okay. We are making a motion to consider rescinding the previous approval of the amendment application number 171095 to the Historic Preservation Plan, application number HA1084 for the Heen Apple Barn, a designated historic resource rated at NR3, and consider a new action to approve the proposed amendment and approve the proposed addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. This proposal amendment will add 1 skylight, retain a larger portion of the historic loading dock as a deck, and reduce the number of new doors at the north elevation from 3 to 2 and modify the door designs. Staff, could you please give your presentation now?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Your Commission is being asked to reconsider this item and take a new action today to approve the proposed amendment in response to requests from the public for additional time to review materials. The Heen Apple Barn, also known as the Heen Apple Packing House, is an important historic resource in Aptos Village. It is significant for its association with Frederick Heen and is the last remaining industrial building in Aptos associated with the apple packing industry. This photo was taken in approximately 1915 and shows the packing house in active operation with the barn with crates stacked on the loading dock and being loaded onto horse and donkey carts. The building has been added to over time. The first portion of the building was estimated to be constructed sometime between 1890 and 1899. Following is a brief recap of the permits and approvals issued for the Heen Apple Barn to date. In February of 2010, the Board of Supervisors approved the Aptos Village Plan, which was a conceptual plan for the development of Aptos Village. On July 15, 2010, the applicant submitted the Aptos Village Project application, which was a development application to implement the approved Aptos Village Plan. On August 5, 2011, your commission approved the historic preservation plan for the Apple Barn. And this was for rehabilitation for grocery store use and relocation on the site. To review, rehabilitation is a form of preservation from the Secretary of Interior standards, and it's defined as the process of returning a property to a state of utility through repair or alteration, which makes possible an efficient contemporary use while preserving those portions and features of the property which are significant to its historic, cultural, and architectural values. So the federal government recognizes that through alteration and rehabilitation, this is a way to preserve the building for future generations and restore the structural integrity and architectural integrity of the building. The plan approved by your commission provides for relocating the building approximately 100 feet to the north, facing the village green in a central location within Aptos Village, and connecting the barn to a new building via a small link building, which will accommodate the needs of the grocery store. The rehabilitation plan is reviewed for conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards and is reviewed extensively by your commission. The approved plan includes 14 conditions of approval to ensure compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards and protecting the significant character-defining features. On September 25, 2012, the Board of Supervisors approved the Aptos Village Project with the Historic Preservation Plan, and they also adopted the Mitigated Negative Declaration with conditions of approval, and this provided vested rights to the applicant to develop the project in accordance with the approved preservation plan. On April 4th, 2016, the building permit was issued for the Apple Barn rehabilitation and relocation in accordance with the approved preservation plan. And this includes the rehabilitation work, including the installation of the new roof, the new foundation, skirting boards around the perimeter, and other work in compliance with the approved preservation plan. Staff has frequently visited the site to ensure compliance with the issued building permit. On August 10th, 2016, the applicant submitted a building permit application for tenant improvements to the Apple Barn to accommodate the needs of the grocery store tenant, as is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The application was reviewed and found to be consistent with the approved historic preservation plan, with the exception of 3 minor design changes to the historic preservation plan. These design changes require review and approval by your commission before the building permit for tenant improvements can be issued. So today's action is limited to a consideration of the proposed amendment consisting of minor design changes to the approved historic preservation plan for the Apple Barn, and consider the adoption of the proposed addendum to the Mitigated Negative Declaration. This is not a reconsideration of any previous planning approval or issued building permits for the Aptos Village Project, including the approved historic preservation plan for the Apple Barn and the adopted mitigated negative declaration for the Aptos Village Project. So now let's go on to review the proposed amendment. The first proposed amendment is revisions to the deck, which historically functioned as the loading dock. This photo, again, from 1915, shows how the loading dock functioned at the site. This photo was taken prior to the addition of the third bay, and as you can see, the loading dock extends along the side of the building and around the sides of the building. You can see the crates loaded around the sides as well. In the approved historic preservation plan, a portion of the loading dock along what is now the south elevation will be retained. This is a photo of the apple barn in its new location, and at the left side here, you can see this is where the loading dock is proposed to be retained in the approved historic preservation plan. In the proposed amendment, which is on the left side here, excuse me, in the approved historic preservation plan, which is on the left side, this is the south elevation showing the where the loading dock area to be retained. This is a accessibility ramp, and this on extending around is another ramp ending in this location, with a total of 480 square feet of the deck loading dock being retained. In the proposed amendment, the accessibility ramp extends along the side, the same as the approved plan. The deck loading dock area would be retained along the south elevation, but instead of an additional ramp on this side, there would be a small set of stairs extending down to the green area, and this would allow for more of the historic loading dock to be retained. So in this proposed amendment, there would be a total of 530 square feet of the loading dock being retained. So this is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, including Standard 2, avoid removal of distinctive features that characterize the property. This change retains more of the historic fabric, leading to greater conformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The second proposed modification to the approved historic preservation plan is the reduction in the number of new doors along the north elevation from 3 doors to 2 doors, and a modification of the door designs. The top shows the approved preservation plan, and the bottom figure shows the proposed amendment. The door at the east end of the elevation, the small door here, will be changed in the proposed amendment from a contemporary aluminum door with transom windows, which is what is shown here. So, and again, a contemporary door with aluminum and windows above, to a solid metal door, and will be placed in the location of the existing opening as with the approved historic preservation plan. As a project condition, the door would be painted the same color as the building to blend in with the historic fabric. As proposed, the revised door will be more compatible with the existing materials than the door in the approved preservation plan, as it will be less visible without the addition of glass or unpainted aluminum. This will result in increased compatibility with standard number 9, stating that the new work shall be compatible with the historic materials. The middle door on this elevation will be changed from that same style aluminum door with windows above to a steel roll-up door, and the purpose of this door is to accommodate store deliveries. This will also be placed in the location of the existing opening as in the approved historic preservation plan. The steel roll-up door will be similar in appearance to the galvanized roof and will therefore be compatible with existing historic materials. As a recommended condition of approval, the steel would be a matte finish to be compatible with a galvanized roof. The contemporary design of the door is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, including Standard 9, stating that new work shall be differentiated from the old, and Standard 3, stating that changes that create a false sense of historical development shall not be undertaken. The third new door that was approved in the Historic Preservation Plan will not be installed with the proposed amendment. The existing door will be fixed in place, resulting in no visible changes to this portion of the elevation. Reduction in the number of new doors will result in fewer alterations to the historic building and will bring the project into greater conformance with the rehabilitation standards. The third proposed change is to add one new skylight. The Historic Preservation Plan approved by your commission did not include any skylights. When the false ceiling was removed from the building, the architectural conservator for the project identified openings in the roof framing characteristic of skylight openings. And you can see on the left, this framed-in area is typical of how a skylight would be framed. We do not have any photos from the Appleborn showing skylights, but we do have a photo from approximately 1920 provided by Commissioner Swift to the Aptos Museum showing industrial buildings in Aptos associated with the apple packing industry. And you can see here as well as here what appear to be skylights in the roof opening. The applicant is proposing to install one skylight approximately 2 feet by 8 feet in an existing opening in the roof framing. An opening would be cut in the new galvanized roofing, which is to be replaced in accordance with the approved preservation plan. No alterations to the roof framing would be required. As proposed, the skylight would be located in the valley of the roof between the first and second bay towards the center of the building. The small rectangular square here shows the location of the proposed skylight. There we go. This photo shows the view of the building located from the south, and the arrow shows that the skylight would be approximately 133 feet back from the edge of this roof, and the skylight is not anticipated to be visible viewed from the south or from any other vantage point at the site. As proposed, the skylight is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards as it avoids alterations to the roof framing, which is an important character-defining feature. The skylight would be of modern design and will be differentiated from the historic materials and will be compatible with the historic property in size and scale. Seeker review of this project is limited to evaluating the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project. In this case, the impact of the proposed amendment to the Historic Preservation Plan, consisting of minor design changes to the Heen Apple Barn. Pursuant to CEQA, an addendum to the mitigated negative declaration may be prepared for minor technical changes to a project that do not result in new significant environmental impacts. Under CEQA, projects determined to be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards are considered to result in less than significant impacts to the environment. As outlined in the attached staff report, the proposed minor design changes have been evaluated for consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and found to be consistent with these standards. Furthermore, there is no new information of substantial importance that was not known at the time the mitigated negative declaration was adopted that would affect the environmental analysis for this project. It should also be noted that the proposed amendment to the preservation plan will not result in any additional ground disturbance for the project. Therefore, the project does not have the potential to impact archaeological resources. As no potentially significant environmental impacts have been identified from the proposed amendment to the Historic Preservation Plan, no new mitigation measures or further environmental review is required. To conclude, staff has reviewed the proposed amendment for consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. The retention of a greater portion of the loading dock retains more of this important character-defining feature and brings the project into greater conformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The reduction in the number of new doors results in fewer alterations to the historic building and also brings the project into greater conformance with the standards. The contemporary door designs are compatible with the historic materials, including the galvanized roof, and compatible with the size and scale of the historic buildings as they are located within existing door openings. The proposed addition of one skylight will be located within an existing opening in the roof framing and therefore will not require modification to this important historic feature and will not be visible when viewed from the site and has also been found to be consistent with the rehabilitation standards. As the proposed amendment is found to be consistent with the standards As analyzed in the addendum to the negative declaration, the proposed amendment is not anticipated to result in significant impacts to the environment. With the proposed amendment, the Heen Apple Barn will retain more of the historic fabric and result in fewer visible changes to the building, such that the building will better convey its historic role and importance in the history of Aptos for future generations. I have reviewed all correspondence, including correspondence received in the last 48 hours up through 8 a.m. this morning. This correspondence has been provided to your commission and copies made available for public review. No information has been provided in the correspondence which would change the analysis and recommendations in the staff report. Therefore, staff is recommending that your commission consider public comment, take an action to rescind the previous approval of the proposed amendment, and take a separate action to approve the proposed addendum to the mitigated negative declaration and approve the proposed amendment to the Historic Preservation Plan, application 171095, as submitted in Exhibit C, based upon the attached findings and with the recommended conditions of approval. Thank you. That concludes my presentation today. We do have the architect, Guy Altman, here to answer any questions. Also, Maya Gendrew, the architectural conservator for the property, is here to address any questions regarding historic significance and questions regarding conformance with the standards. Thank you.
All right, so do the commissioners have any questions that they would like to ask of the architect? Any questions of the staff, any clarifications? If not, then we'll open it up for public comments. So anyone who would like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium.
Good morning, my name is Becky Steinberg. I'm a resident of Aptos, and I just want to clarify the reason this hearing is happening again is because there were multiple Ralph M. Brown Act violations. And that was pointed out to the commission at the last hearing as well. So I want to clarify that. I also want to clarify that this is the legal opportunity for citizens to bring forth new information and substantial changes to conditions, circumstances regarding the project, and to feasibility of alternatives. And that is a legal ability of the public under the CEQA code. So I have submitted over the last couple of days and up to this morning some of those pieces of new information that I think are significant and that this commission needs to consider. And I do want to ask that your commission, as a discretionary approval body under CEQA law, you have the ability to demand or require further environmental review, which I think this project thoroughly warrants. I think the most egregious thing that I have learned and I have given to you in communication is the knowledge that there is a large, significant prehistoric archaeological site near and on the premises, as I understand, logged in 1979. This was never mentioned in the environmental review work for the Aptos Village Project, but it was mentioned quite prominently in Soquel Creek Water District's environmental impact report that was done in 2011, much at the same time as work was being done for this project. It is California CA-SCR-222. The significance of that site on the construction project warranted and required Soquel Creek Water District to have a Native American observer and a qualified archaeological observer on site at all times, and they were. I talked with them, and I just recently got their report, and that is the only reason I know about this site. Unfortunately, the information about that site is not public information to guard its security. I also want to really say that the archaeologist that is on site sometimes is not there at the site. and has much the same attitude as the county operators on Aptos Village road construction regarding archaeological things. They threw this bottle back into the pit, and they retrieved it and gave it to me. It's a bottle from the 1800s. And there was no significance given to it at all. Similarly, on Cathedral Drive, I was watching excavation happen, and I believe they dug up an intact stone mortar. The man threw it back in the hole. There was no archaeologist there. There was no archaeologist on the site. There are many things that I have outlined to you in communication that warrant a subsequent EIR, and I demand that further environmental review be done on this project. I do not feel that the historic changes proposed in this amendment are consistent. The roof framing for the skylight has obviously been altered. You can see that by the stains in your photograph that they have been altered and created.
Thank you, Becky. Is there any other comments?
My name is Tom Stonbaugh. I live in Aptos. I have a couple of issues. You're here today because the previous meeting was found to be in violation of the Brown Act in several ways. And it appears that you are here today to repeat the actions of the previous meeting when a room full of people virtually begged you not to take action approving the proposed modifications on this barn. And I'm saying this because I believe it to be so, that you folks just ignored whatever this crowd of people in the room for the last meeting were asking you. Please, please, please don't take action on these modifications until they have been further studied. It appears to me that you're ready to do the same thing that you did then. Somebody will wink, somebody will make a motion, and everybody will vote in favor of the modifications, and you'll get up and walk out. This is the kind of action that I expect in this county, because it's the kind of corruption that exists from the top to the bottom of this county government. Please do not ape the actions of other commissions and boards and so on and so forth in this government by not paying any attention to the public on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
My name is Nancy Howells, and I live in Aptos and have been for 50 years. I'm very concerned about the fact that you people spend a lot of time and effort to make decisions that concern the historical significance of our little unique village, and yet it seems to go the other way when push comes to shove and you have something like the village fair. That building has already been modified, and they don't have the permission yet of this commission to do some of the changes. I don't understand the procedure. It seems if you're a wealthy contractor, you can pretty much do what you want without legal authority. If you were a little person, you couldn't do that. The turntable that's supposed to be in there is supposedly a part of the historic value of that property, and that's been ignored and told that we don't have it in that turntable area, but I understand it's supposed to be there. The little yellow house in the village that I went to a meeting and you proposed to make some changes in it, it's demolished completely. The only thing left of that building is the tree in front of the whole thing. So whoever is making these laws, they don't seem to have teeth. It seems like a toothless tiger to me. And I would propose that we need to have more penalties for people who do not obey the law, whether you're a wealthy contractor or not. Los Gatos and Saratoga Commission put some power into its decisions recently. It was in the paper with stiff penalties designed to ensure the quaintness, uniqueness, and so forth of their charming village. We don't have anything like that. The village is supposedly going to be turned into something that looks more like San Jose than Aptos. And I'm really concerned about that. As a resident of Aptos for so long, I don't think we have the infrastructure for these kind of massive developments with a 2-lane road and what have you. I know it's already been decided, but these changes in the building have not been decided yet. They've already begun to install the historic skirting on the barn, even though it has not been approved. This is the way these people seem to operate. They don't need your approval, but I think it should be important, and I think you need some teeth in the law to support what you're doing up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
This does seem like a Silicon Valley project, not an Aptos Village project. And in terms of negative declaration, I've seen this many times, whereas actually it doesn't qualify as a negative declaration. There are severe environmental impacts that have been brought up. It sounds great on paper, but the reality out there is something else. Artifacts are not being protected. And last time I gave my time to Becky Steinbrunner, who has researched this. It's a very small amount of time to hear her compared to all the countless hours that have been spent with the developer. So I want to relinquish, like last time, please grant my time to Becky Steinbrunner. This has been done by chairs of the Board of Supervisors in the past. Thank you. My name's Marilyn Garrett.
Thank you, Marilyn. Becky Steinbrunner. I will use this time to bring forth other items that should be and need to be further studied in environmental, under the CEQA law, which is available to the public, and by CEQA law 15162, this is the proper time to bring it up, and it will be brought forth legally if the action isn't taken today. The county's phasing of the traffic mitigations, let me repeat, the county's mitigations, the taxpayers are paying for this. There are very few TIA developer funds going into improving the roadways. The phased mitigations for traffic were not included in the initial studies, traffic reports, or circulation studies. That phasing will throw undue burden onto Trout Gulch Road. That road is not scheduled for any mitigation at all beyond the current phase 1 work of a traffic light. There is no widening to accommodate dedicated turn lanes for Parade Street, Aptos Village Way to come on. And also the illegal taking of the crossing in front of the Bayview Hotel will bring litigation. It is in process, and you must take some action on that. That land is owned by the Bayview Hotel under the 1876 deed. It is guaranteed to in perpetuity, remain open and unfettered, unobstructed, and yet the County Department of Public Works is planning to close it under protest from Ms. Locke. It is an illegal taking, and you will receive legal action if this proceeds. She is in the process. This will preclude, if this is not closed, it will preclude the Parade Street SoCal intersection and a brand new traffic analysis and parking analysis by the subdivision. Conditions for approval must be submitted and conducted. I urge you to order a subsequent EIR on this project. You have the legal ability. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to remind the audience, though, that public comments, this period is focused strictly on what the this amendment is, which is about dealing with the skylight.
This is a CEQA hearing. By law, it is available to discuss other things.
You're done with your public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready for more public comments?
Yes, as long as it's on agenda topic number 3.
Hi there again. My name is Monica McGuire. Unfortunately, I was unable to get here on time. There's a lot to do on busy mornings like this. I'm really curious what happened. There was no way to do it after hours, as was
No, we do not hold our commission after hours. We always have it during the day on a Monday or on a morning time frame.
Well, I just, unfortunately as well, didn't think of this until this morning, that all the people that I've asked since finding out that it was going to be rescheduled at least, were unable to come because it's hours that people are busy and working and usually don't have the ability to fight the traffic, etc. I really think it's important as well that what Becky was just saying about this is a CEQA hearing and therefore there are other things that are supposed to be accounted about. Are we not? Now that Annie, you didn't want to say anything to Becky, is there something you would say? Well, what about it being a CEQA meeting?
The chair will ask for comments from staff if she wants those later.
Okay, I just thought since she shushed Becky, it was appropriate to ask, why are you shushing someone? I really think overall we have to just get back to this is a human place and we all want to treat you all as the caring beings that we know you are. But I finally realized this morning I could at least write up a partial list of the people that I could reach and say, all these people would be here, except that it's at an hour that they can't. And they also all said, why do we need to be there to talk about things that we trust these people care about? And we don't know why they aren't being brought to your attention as they should be, such as all the things that Becky brought up. There's so many more aspects to the historical preservation of Aptos that have not been added as an item for this meeting. And that's what really bothers everybody who I talk to. So here's the list of people that I did think to say, hey, can I put you on the list that you'd be there if you could? And you also wonder, why do we need to come to a meeting like this? What's wrong in Santa Cruz County that we don't have things set up the way that we expect them to be set up? That you guys would automatically be going through things like wire bottles being tossed around by the people who are doing the digging instead of somebody figuring out ahead of time not to let things like that happen. And it's not your individual faults, clearly, but it is something that we have to say, hey, could you tell us what's going on that we have to even do this? Why do I have to be here instead of being on calls that I need to be on? We trust that something is in you, that you care too, that we're taking our time to come and say, this seems like there's too many things that are wrong about not just this project, but lots of other things in this county. Please care about the pieces that we're coming to you about. Thank you. And just the other people that wish they were here, Suzanne Redinger, Carl Merritt, Alexander Kaufman, Aslan Skye, Aurelius Roon, Nora Bianchi, the Castersons, and Michelle Dixon. They were the ones I was able to say, oh, can I include you? And I wish I'd done it with the several dozen more who have the same answer over and over. I can't go during business hours to a meeting like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joanne Katzen. I too am a resident of Aptos, long-time resident, and I echo what people have said here, that also holding a meeting at this hour is impossible for people to attend except retirees. Anyhow, I would like to cede my time to Becky. Thank you.
Becky Steinbruner, Aptos. I want to state for the record the CEQA law that does allow your discretionary approval body to take action on further environmental review. It is California Code CCR 15162, Section A, Section 3, addresses new information of substantial importance. And this is in your packet. It's in your packet, but it's stated a little differently, saying that you can only take an addendum improvement when you can take full environmental subsequent EIR action. New information of substantial importance which was not known or could not have been known with the exercise of reasonable diligence when prior EIR or negative declarations were prepared show one of three outcomes. One, new or substantially more severe significant impacts, new or substantially more severe impacts that could not have been known with reasonable diligence. Two, mitigation or alternative found not to be feasible, but in fact is feasible. What was thought previously not to be feasible is in fact feasible and would substantially reduce one or more significant impacts. And the project proponents decline to adopt them. If the proponents accept them, there is no more need for further environmental review, but there is if these things are shown to be true. And I pointed out several of these within my document that I sent to you this morning. Number three, mitigation or alternative considerably different from those analyzed previously in the EIR. The mitigation or alternatives are different from those analyzed previously, would have substantially reduced one or more significant effects, but the project proponent declines to adopt them, and I apologize for the typos. I had difficulty with my computer. If the project proponent accepts them, there is no need for further environmental review. So that is one instance that you can, and I brought several pieces of new information. The most egregious to me, and that I had hoped you would care about, is the existence of a large prehistoric archaeological site in the area where Soquel Creek Water District's Native American and archaeological observers found things. This is the very same site that Barry Swenson Builder and SCUP Cruz are trenching now to install the sewer line. You must stop the work now. You must insist there is a Native American observer there. Anne-Marie Sayers was never notified about this, and she's quite upset. And she did contact Miss Murphy about this issue. You have the ability before you, because you are making a discretionary decision regarding the project in a public body, to take and require further environmental review. I want a subsequent EIR. Thank you.
My name is Doris Katzen. I've lived in Aptos for 28 years. I'm glad to see all women in this body, as I see Board of Supervisors are all men. But I hope we as women, we come to conclusions that are a little differently. You see, as women, we bring life into this world, and we search for certain things, sometimes different things than men do. For example, a lot of us moved into Aptos because we thought it was a different type of community. People all over think, for heaven's sakes, you live in Aptos? That's paradise. Well, I've come to feel, since the redesigning of this community, that we have lost the paradise. What makes anybody feel that they can come into a community that people have bought into and redesign it the way they think they should because they have the money? Well, our community is changing. People are beginning to realize, and I'm not going into it because it applies to this situation, what we have had to endure these past almost 4 months of not having our road. And why? And who made that design that we shouldn't have a road? Even when we were walking into it, they took away the ability of us to walk, children with bicycles. My time is up, but you as women, please do not be bought off for something like this. It's a miscarriage of justice.
My name is Valerie Templeman. I lived in that house about 30 years. I'm also here to say that I think injustice has been done on this project. Every possible way, rules haven't been followed or enforced. They've been covered up. Work has been done at night. Things have been done sneakily, illegally, unethically, and no one seems to care. Residents seem to have bought everybody off, including, I almost think, all of you, all of the council members. I'd like to relinquish the rest of my time to Becky.
Thank you, Valerie. I wasn't expecting that one. Thank you. Becky Steinbrenner. I will continue with some of the points that I outlined in the communication that I sent to you today. And again, my main concern is the destruction of historic artifacts on the site. I will repeat, there is no one watching. There is no one watching. The man that comes from Robert Cartier's business stands, when he is there, he stands off in the shade of a building and looks at his cell phone. He is not at the digging site. There's destruction of major artifacts going on there, and nobody's watching. And you need to require that all work stop until a Native American observer is there at the site every day during earthwork and disturbance. Another issue that I want to bring forth again is the traffic volume and circulation. The numbers reported in the 2004 traffic study that is cited in most of the environmental work submitted for the project, updated only for the 2-hour peak PM hours in 2006 and 2009. We all know, if you live there, you know it's more than just the afternoon. It's all day, it's gridlocked. It's different now because Valencia Road is closed and the school traffic is being sent away, but it's gridlocked, and the numbers are not realistic. They do not agree with what Jack Sarayakoff, senior traffic engineer from Department of Public Works himself, submitted to the RTC for a grant. The numbers are higher even than what the TJKM study showed the project would be when the thing was built. The bridge itself is a 1928 bridge. It has not been inspected since the recent storms. The last report in 2015 noted erosion at the abutments. That was verified by Mr. David Nefus, County Council, with photos from Department of Public Works, but there has been no structural integrity checks on the bridge. This was recommended in the 2013 Caltrans routine inspection that there was scouring, erosion, and during major storms the bridge should be inspected and closed if necessary. How will this construction traffic and increase in truck traffic of the village affect it? It is a huge safety issue that is not being addressed and demands a subsequent EIR. The other side is also perilous and very threatened after the storms, barely one lane each way. We can't handle this, and you need to take a subsequent EIR stand to help the people in the area be safe.
Good morning. Ed Silvera, founder of Villa Branson 40 Preservation Society. We stress that the visuals of history be honored. When you start counting up historic buildings, that's exactly what we're left with. There can be some creative issues that could be considered. An example, the folding door, the sliding door, overhead door. You can do simple things like do a mural of the existing door. Simple things like that to where it's functional for the business, but yet shows respect for the cultural historic resources. You don't want to be clowning up our buildings, and that's what's happening to accommodate this development. These developers need to respect our cultural resources, our history. Washington, D.C. they've been collecting our artifacts, and I'll bring more to that to your attention as time moves on, but it's a fact. And you may not be aware of it, but you should be aware of it. And so if Washington, the United States of America, appreciates our history and our artifacts, then this commission should do as well. Thank you for your consideration.
Gary Lindstrom, 50-year resident of Aptos. This is pertaining directly to Article 3 that was to be talked about this morning. At the last meeting, we talked about covering up the sliding door with a barn door, which was originally on the building. So when the sliding door is not in use, close the barn door, respect the building, respect the history, respect the look of the Aptos Village. It's not an industrial area. This whole thing is a mess. The traffic is going to be absolutely unbelievable. I'm upset because I grew up here and I see Santa Cruz County just withering away. And you people are the most important people we have to rely on to hang on to our history and our values. Every single time some building is torn down, we lose part of our past. And it is a past that we cannot retrieve. So every move that's made on any building has to be respected. It needs to be as original as possible, and it needs to be just respected. Aptos Village is now going to be the cornerstone for the county's plan for high-density growth all the way down Soquel Avenue into the city of Santa Cruz. Nobody is aware of this. Nobody. Other than those of us that have the time and the ability to go to the county meetings. This project in Aptos is entirely too large and changing the quality of life for the people in our area. It should have never been approved without a vote from the public, period. And you have to think about this in the future. You cannot go through and change people's lives like this without them having a say. And we depend on you people to respect our opinions as well, not the contractors. Barry Swenson Builders is out of San Jose. If he wants to build this kind of nonsense, he needs to go back to San Jose. They'll welcome it. But it's got to stop. This is not San Jose. The other thing that I just wanted to say was the bridge. And I was the first one to bring it up. It was built in 1928. They did not have 18-wheelers in 1928. Okay? Is it going to take a school bus of children collapsing that bridge and ending up in the creek to make people aware that that bridge is not going to be able to deal with all this traffic, and God forbid we have another earthquake like we had in '89. So please, think about what you're doing. We're asking you to please think about what you're doing. Thank you.
You can speak. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Holly Forcier, and my family moved to Aptos in 1967 and has owned property and lived in Aptos through many changes. I'm not sure my position on high density, but I am concerned about the road south of Trout Gulch, where there is severe storm damage. And when I drive through that to come into Old Aptos from the south, or to leave Aptos Village from the north, there are cones, you know, changing the lanes because in the storms, the road has fallen away into the ditch. And so the road is now far narrower. And the lanes, you know, getting through is quite narrow. And I'm concerned that putting heavy traffic on those roads before they're secure is going to further damage that road there. And to me, it seems like that storm damage needs to be completely repaired and evaluated to see that it's ready to handle more traffic and more heavier traffic before that is authorized. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's scary. It's scary.
Welcome.
Thank you. Bruce Tanner, Santa Cruz. In this county, there is a culture of complicity in projects like this. This project has been going on for years, for the most part under the radar and without sufficient notification of the public of what's going on. And even at this late date, some might say, well, they've put a tremendous amount of effort and money and time into this project, but they are constantly riding roughshod over the local population, disregarding people's feeling for their community. And my observation is that the county staff and the county commissions are in a go along to get along mode. Year after year after year, nobody wants to rock the boat. But this may be the place where something has to be done to preserve this community. This project puts an unbearable burden on Aptos Village. It will not be the same, and it's going to be a chronic nightmare for years to come. The contractors have taken advantage of the county at many, many turns, to the point where now they don't even have affordable housing units, which were mandated. They are getting the county to pay millions of dollars of traffic mitigations for them, and there are other things that are going on under the radar as well. So, when is it time for people to listen to people who, like the people who are here today? I recently read an article in the local press about the Santa Cruz City Council meeting in which the writer was ridiculing the people who came to make public comments to the council. These people are the canaries in the coal mine. They represent hundreds of other people who don't know what's going on or who can't be here today. Yes, if you were to order an EIR, that would definitely be outside what the county staff thinks that you should be doing. But maybe it's time to do something that they don't think you should be doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good morning, and before my time begins, Madam Chair, may I ask that one of the first documents that was put on the screen be, which was about the Historic Preservation Secretary of the Interior be up there. There's some quote there that I'd like to use in my remarks, if I might not. Yes, that's it. That's it. Is that the first one that was? Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Dobie Jenkins, and I am a 15-year resident of Freedom down in South County. And I was struck by the language in the HRC approval, the paragraph there, rehabilitate for grocery store use, relocate, rehabilitation, the process of returning a property to a state of utility use through repair or alteration, which makes possible an efficient contemporary use while preserving those portions and features of the property which are significant to its historic, architectural, and cultural values. Conditions to protect the character-defining features. As I recall, the agenda item 3 has to do with modifications to skylights, loading dock, and as I understand the modifications, they are either to enhance or in a very minor way. I mean, the barns have been moved. They are 95, 98% as they existed historically. I would like to urge, let's see, I've got a minute and 20 seconds left. I would like to urge with respect to item 3 that the Commission approve these modifications as they have been presented. I think that we've gotten, you know, an exceptional movement and reuse of this property that we would dream of having on some of our properties down in South Counties, where we still have a lot of apples down there, and we have a large business that uses the apples. But on the item before you today, please prove it as it has been presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask one question, a point of order?
Pardon?
May I ask one question and a point of order?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
Thank you, Becky Steinbrenner. I want to know if the historic preservation plan for this project is current. According to the research that I've done, it expired in 2014 and has not been brought before this board publicly for an extension, and your body is the only one who can make that extension. Is the project historic preservation plan current? Because if it isn't,
I think it did. I think this was discussed at our last meeting.
No, but it wasn't.
My mind was.
I brought it up, but it was not answered.
Maybe you can take questions after the close of the public hearing.
This is a critical issue. You're amending a historic preservation plan that has expired. It has expired in 2014. The master application expired in September of 2016.
If we place this question into after it comes back to the board, can there be any discussion at that time, or will that negate?
How can you take action on an amended preservation plan when it is expired?
I can address the question now if you like, or you can defer
Yes.
to later. Okay, so under Santa Cruz County Code 1810-132, it states that development permit shall expire and become void 2 years following the date it becomes effective unless a building permit for the project, there's 4 criteria, but the one that pertains to this is a building permit for the project is obtained and construction is commenced prior to the expiration date and diligently pursued toward completion. So in this case, the building permit has been issued for the apple barn and is being diligently pursued to completion, and this retains the validity of the approved historic preservation plan.
That permit was not issued before the plan expired. It was issued, as your dates show, in 2016. The plan expired in 2014, and you did not extend it.
The staff's position is that we believe that the permit is valid, and it's valid for you to look at this project today and take action upon it.
Under Code 1642.060L, expiration, an approved historic resource preservation plan shall remain valid for a period of 2 years from the date of approval by the Historic Resources Commission, unless the Commission specifies a longer period of time. Your board amended this historic preservation plan on January 19th, 2012. It expired January 19th, 2014. You have not taken any other action. There were no building permits issued before 2014. The plan has expired. You cannot take action. All of the permit approvals that have been issued under county code are not valid. Where is the oversight on this project?
I think this needs to be with the staff.
I think it needs to be tabled. I asked this question of Ms. Wanda Williams and Mr. Martin Heaney. They could not give me answers.
So
I'm thinking about where we are in the progression of the public hearing.
Right.
And since this is an issue, and if you would like to have some more discussion about that, we can do that, but it's awkward to have it before you've gone through the process with the public hearing. So if you would like to see if anybody else has any comments to make, then we can see the process through of the public hearing. You can close the public hearing, and then we can have any discussion your commission would like to have.
Okay, so let's do that.
All right, so your only action really available is to deny this amendment because the plan is expired.
We thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Actually, I'd really like to know when the public will be able to find out the answer to this very important question.
Well, once the public comment ends and is back to the commission, and then we open our discussion, hopefully we will have that information. I don't know.
Do you have any idea when we might be able to find out?
Not at this 1 second. No, I don't. And we have someone who would like to speak, and I'm sorry, but you're not at the podium. Yes.
I go too, so I'd love to know later.
Good morning. My name is Keith Henderson. I'm a 27-year resident of Santa Cruz and employee of Barry Swenson Builder within the local Santa Cruz division. I just wanted to this might be a little different than the other talks. I just wanted to just kind of clarify. When I walked into the apple barn the first time, it was an extreme fire trap. There were evidence of rats, and I mean, the building was literally falling apart. I can attest at this day, as we stand here today, we have begun rehabilitating that building, and I'm very, very proud of what we've done so far. We've been able to recycle all the material, all the floorboards from inside the building. We've actually had a mill out. We have sliced and created siding from the original milling of the building. It's starting to look really nice all around the building. I just want to point that out. I'm excited that we were also able to mill old 4x6s that we're going to be able to use in the rehabilitation of the loading dock. That loading dock was a mess. It was not original material. We are going to be able to repurpose material from the building to do that, so I'm very excited about that. I do want to point out a parallel situation though. What I'm noticing as we work on the site, there's a real fire danger next door at the Bayview Hotel. The Bayview Hotel
is not the Bayview Hotel.
And this is important because the proximity is so close. And
I'm sorry, everyone else was quiet when each of the individual speakers came up. I would request that courtesy be given to our current speaker.
Thank you very much, Ms. Phelps. Yeah, we are very concerned that there's a fuel danger, open fuel, chainsaws, abandoned vehicles right next to the barn, literally next to the barn. I have made this apparent to fire department, and they are looking into it. But I don't want to see the Bayview Hotel disintegrate like the Apple Barn started to do before we started rehabilitating it. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as the item 3, I think we're complying to the skylight issue. The deck issue, I think, is going to be fantastic for the public in the future. And as far as the doors, I'm open to any suggestions that come up regarding those doors because I don't see that as a non-mitigatable issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, public comments are still open.
Yes, thank you. I am Christina Locke, the owner of the Bayview Hotel. And yes, there was my son was working in the back of the garden, and he was burning some debris, and we've already covered with the fire department and everybody else. So everything he was doing was legal, by the way. So the thing is that this gentleman here is like taking pictures, going over the fence and taking pictures of what we're doing, whatever it is. And then we are addressing the whole thing about the abandoned cars, whatever, with a different department. What's her name?
Robin Bolstergren.
Thank you. So everything that he's mentioning is being addressed by Robin Bolstergren, and also the fact that we have no privacy at the Bayview Hotel. They've taken down our fence, the fence that was there. They've taken which was a fire department next door, and now there's just a chain link fence that overlooks our garden area. So, and they took it all down. I mean, before they had a green area covering the chain link fence. Now it's completely barren. We are so tired of having a problem with all these bulldozers going through my property. My property now in the front of the Bayview is damaged because of them. And I talked to the guy that got an okay from you guys to fix the bus stop and everything else, but did not get my okay from going through my front of the property with his bulldozers. And I talked to him about it. He said he's going to fix the property, the front of the Bayview. But this is not acceptable. I mean, the fact that we have no privacy, the fact that the noises all day long. We're talking about maybe my son was on the back doing a chainsaw thing, for a short time, but they're making all kinds of dust, all kinds of noise, in and out every day. Okay,
no construction easement.
And they're going through my property on the back of the Bayview with no easement of any kind. So this is totally unacceptable. You would think that we would have dialogue about the situation with them, but it doesn't really happen. And I'm really, really tired of what's going on. And no, this is not okay. And I agree with Becky, the fact that they did not get a permit that should be done, and you guys should abide by the law. That is what it is. So thank you.
Any other public comments? If not, then I will bring Amendment 3 back to the Commission for discussion. Before we start, I would like to just make one quick comment. The Historic Resources Commission deals strictly with historic structures. We have nothing to do with roads, nothing to do with bridges, other than the 4 that are on the National Register within our inventory. We have nothing to do with bus stops, and we make recommendations only. We do not have the authority to make a statement to say stop, or you must. We make recommendations that are processed through the staff and on to the supervisors. So just...
You are the discretionary body, making a discretionary approval.
Please, no discussion, no addressing the Commission at this time. Please. No, please.
We are the community.
You had your time through the public comments. I just wanted to make sure you understood we have nothing to do with the streets or the buses or triplex. So, please. So we are now open for discussion. I guess one of the questions that came up was about this special meeting. The special meeting is about 2 specific agenda items.
That is correct.
So, do we need to make a request on?
You're in item number 3. Yes, Susie.
Thank you. I just want to go back to the question that was asked by Ms. Steinbrunner earlier regarding the historic preservation plan and expiration date. Can you tell me, do you know when the building permits were first applied for this project?
I don't believe I have the application date for the permit. I just know the date that it was approved.
It's my understanding about the 2-year expiration of the historic preservation plan that it's not necessarily based on building permit approval, but moving forward with building permit application or grading permit. So I think that would be important kind of to know whether that was done before 2014 or
yes. Not. And I would like to emphasize that this issue was addressed with Wanda Williams, and they evaluated and determined that the historic preservation plan is in effect, and that due to the exercise of the building permit. But I can do some research and find out when the building permit was applied for.
Considering that this project will be going on a while longer, it seems like this is a question that needs to be resolved, so that it doesn't keep reoccurring at each meeting. So, so we can know for sure that the historic plan has been approved and is still in effect.
And it has been exercised. Work on the building has been ongoing, and the building was indeed moved as part of the HPP.
So, do we get to respond?
Yes, we can now respond to some of the questions.
Questions?
Well, that they asked.
Ma'am? Okay. I'm just going to say a few things because I was, like you, also born here and raised in Watsonville and Aptos. And going through my files, I found recently the Aptos Village Secondary Testing Recommendations of 1979, describing the area that the public's not supposed to see. And I have the Albion report, the archival background to the Aptos Village Project from 1979, the Cartier report. I have these things because I care. That's the point that I want to make. And all of you are standing up and telling us that we don't care. And I get a little insulted because we are the group that cares enough to come to these meetings. And yes, some of us are retired, but I came to a lot of these meetings when I was not. And when it was not convenient. And when it was late in the afternoon and I got stuck in commute traffic. So it's not easy for us to sit here. We don't, enjoy spending all of our days doing this. We are an appointed body that makes recommendations. And I went to the Board of Supervisors meeting when the Aptos plan was approved, and I stood up and I said very much what you had just said. I didn't like the plan. I don't get to comment, however, on whether or not I like the plan. All I can do is look at the historical portion of it. And I know that a lot of you that have gotten up to speak don't really understand what our job is and what we could do. If we had the authority to do what you would like us to, we would probably exercise it. But we know we don't. We can only, our role is very limited. And so all we can do is try and do the best we can for the historic structure and what little of Aptos history is going to remain. Okay?
Anybody else? Sounds good to me.
So I would like to ask you, Carolyn, in all of those reports, was there any indication of any archaeological, historic?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, indeed. That is something that concerns me. The reports do show that this what is an archaeologically sensitive area. However, as Becky was pointing out, the CASCR 222 area does not include the Aptos barn. That area seems to have been mostly the area that was the Aptos depot, where the old vinegar works had been, closer to the forestinizing marks. So that area was designated as perhaps sensitive for Native American findings. But the rest of it, I mean, I know I was out there when they did archaeological testing and found a great deal of artifacts related to the Chinese community that lived there and worked there. So I know they found things, and I know that there is, that whole area is sensitive. And so one of the things that I am concerned about is making sure that that's protected. I mean, there's nothing directly that I can see in all of these reports directly indicating that there's anything around the barn itself. However, I mean, the area itself is, has been identified as being archaeologically sensitive.
May I make a comment about that site as well?
Please.
The archaeological site SCR 222/H was evaluated as part of the mitigated negative declaration for the project. A phase 1 archaeological investigation was completed, and there are conclusions from the report that are provided in the negative declaration, including that site integrity appears to have been severely impacted by historic and modern activities, and mitigation measures recommended in the Albion report were included in the mitigation measures and adopted with the mitigated negative declaration.
So is that report that you're talking about the same one that you've got, or has there been another one subsequent?
Mine is probably like a draft or something. Like 2009. So.
Yeah, that's the report. I was reading from the mitigated negative declaration with the project, but that was summarizing the conclusions from the report.
A question would be, to make us all a little less worried about it, if right now there is not a native archaeological observer, there is some kind of observer, correct? Whenever there's digging, somebody's paying attention.
I think you said it was someone from Mr. Cartier's archaeological.
Yes, so the mitigation measure reads, all ground disturbing activity in the project area shall be monitored by a qualified archaeologist in the event a substantial intact deposit is found within the property. So the mitigation measure only requires that an archaeologist be present in the event a substantial intact deposit is found, but the applicant is going above and beyond that mitigation measure and does have a archaeological monitor present on site when they're disturbing new ground at the site.
Okay, that's good. And at one point we were investigating how the difference between an intact deposit and just random items. Yeah. So like finding a bottle or two, or because I'm very interested in archaeological stuff, and I'm always looking at the ground. And so, you know, if I found an old bottle, I'd be very excited. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a site, or that there's other items, artifacts. So when a showstopper for project development would be a significant find, right? Or, I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is how much stuff do they have to find before everybody gets excited?
If
Finding it.
they have a monitor on site, so if the archaeological monitor found something, they would be able to determine whether that would be considered a substantial intact deposit. The negative declaration does sort of recognize that there are random artifacts out of the site, then that does not constitute a substantial intact deposit.
Okay.
So, and these random items are being put aside? No, I'm sorry, public comments have closed. This is the...
May I ask a question that is not on the agenda?
No, I'm sorry, you can't.
Oh, thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
Seeing what's
So
going on.
this is the commission's time to discuss and to ask questions and to discuss with staff.
I should be allowed to ask a question.
So, Linda, I'm sorry, can you clarify your question?
So if as part of the
Shame on you.
construction, they come across a box, a bottle, piece of pottery, that's being put aside.
Where are they?
I'm going to answer your question and then leave the room for a moment. There is an archaeological monitor on site, so it would be their professional determination as to whether a significant intact deposit had been located. And if it had been, then at that point, construction or its ground disturbance would cease until a plan could be developed. And I don't know what that plan would be. It would depend upon the resources and the extent, but there is a responsibility to properly deal with and catalog any artifacts.
So, but if random things are found and they're removed out of the dirt, the historical monitor comes over, reviews them, looks at them.
That's the purpose for having
and determining if they're significant or how old they are, or you know,
how do you
type of, and then if he says, well, it's not really significant, but it is historical in that it's a very old piece of pottery, whatever. I think at the last meeting we talked about those being kind of safe to be able to put up in some kind of display or something. Yeah.
One of the things that was discussed at the last meeting was that those sorts of things might be able to be incorporated into the interpretive aspect of the
Exactly. So that's the type of, is that kind of going on? Do we know? Or has been?
I have not spoken recently with the archaeological and historic monitor, but she's the one who spoke last time about how that sort of thing could be incorporated. So
okay,
so the purpose of the monitor is to is to be on site to make any determinations about significance and then to take appropriate actions if something significant is found.
He's not there.
So
we're the ones with the eyes on the project, like you.
So
I'm confused. My concern is because it is so close to surveyed sites where Native American remains could be found. I'm a little concerned that some things related to that could be in this area. So, you know, if something that is related to the Aptos Indians is how do they determine that? I mean, how do you know where you say, okay, this is significant?
So a couple things. We can talk more about that as your commission, but I do feel the need to bring back the point that what's before you today, the skylights, the deck, and the doors, they do not involve any ground disturbance. So that your action on that today would not affect what's happening with ground disturbance or archaeological artifacts.
But there's massive ground disturbance going on in the project every single day, and there's nobody watching. And it's in the area where this site is. Correct.
That's right.
Well, I know. Yeah. Okay. We need to stick with the agenda. However, these are also. I mean, this is something that I'm concerned about too.
Right.
Just saying.
What are are you going to do to save it? What are you going to do to
Excuse
save
me, the public comment period has ended. Thank you.
But we are the people. When do we get realistic?
These are the public's artifacts.
Are
They're
you in the
sensitive
middle
to
of
the
your
Native
discussion, or is there a
Americans.
motion, or how would the commission like staff just?
Looking for your guidance, thank you.
Okay, well, if there's more discussion among commission members on this item, then this is an appropriate time for that to happen. Otherwise, it would be an appropriate time to give a motion.
Okay, so on addendum number 3.
Linda, may I make a comment? Linda?
Yes.
A town without a history is like a man without his memory. And I've always been devoted to being on various historic resource commissions here and there and everywhere in California. I was so nervous when they said they were going to move the apple barn that I went and watched a lot of it, as most of us did when it was moved. I'm so grateful that they're saving the apple barn. I can hardly stand it. It's probably the last apple barn in the county. Something like that was just mentioned. But the history of our county is so important, to have them saved is so important. That's why we're here. And the way they have worked to make the changes on the apple barn are commendable, I would say. And we've all studied the plans, and I just don't feel that it's going to really break up the historical integrity of the apple barn. That's what we're here really for. We're here to look at the history of this county, not to look at all the other discussion that we've been having, where we have no power, we have no say.
You do. By law, you do.
Am I talking or am I not talking?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm through talking, but I just wanted to say that preserving these really important buildings are an important aspect of this meeting. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, then, all right, we have now closed the discussion on the commission, for the commission. We are voting. We have 2 action items on this number 3 amendment. The first one is, do we have a motion to rescind the previous approval of the amendment to the, Do we have a motion to rescind the previous approval of the amendment to the Historic Preservation Plan for the Heen Apple Barn, application number 171095?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I did not hear your previous discussion. Could you repeat it, please? The microphone was turned off when you spoke.
I turned it on and repeated, but I'll repeat it. Do we have a motion to rescind the previous approval of the amendment to the Historic Preservation Plan for the Heen Apple Barn, application number 171095? And Commissioner Jenkins made the motion, and Commissioner Orlando made the second. Do we have any all in favor?
Aye.
The motion to rescind the previous approval of the amendment is passed. Now we are moving on to number 2, and this is a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the mitigated negative declaration for the Aptos Village Project and approve the proposed amendment to the historic apple plan for the Heen Apple Barn. And this deals with the 3 items that was discussed. Do I have a motion to approve?
There was a discussion about a roll-up door.
That's true.
And I don't understand what the problem is with the roll-up door or not having a roll-up door. Does not having a roll-up door make it more difficult for the grocery store to manage? Or could it just be the original door that was there and have it open? What's the problem?
I believe in our last discussion at the last hearing, they need to have some kind of door there. And it didn't look like they could use the original door. I don't want to speak for the applicants. And then in discussing whether a similar historic looking door would be appropriate, we determined that it's not appropriate to do false historic design on the building, that we should do something that distinguishes itself from the original apple barn.
Okay, now I understand that part, but I understand also there's a little controversy over these doors. And what I can't understand is why you have to have a roll-up door and not put back and why not you put back the original doors?
So you're saying they have two doors?
Yeah, yeah.
I think there was a comment made about the fire department and that not allowed. Because if you were to open up one door, then there would be another door right there if there was emergency, fire.
We have the professional expert that's waiting for you to invite him to come up.
So
was it a fire department problem?
I think
the issue was with the roll-up door is that some members of the public have commented that they thought that there could be some change in design that would make it that they would prefer, and then your commission did discuss it to some extent in the last hearing, but you're here in a fresh hearing today, and any thoughts you have about whether the door should go forward as described in the plan, or whether you think you should condition it to be some other way is a legitimate issue for your discussion.
And I do want to clarify that the original door is being retained in the open position adjacent to the roll-up door, so the original door is being retained. If you wish to ask for clarification from the architect whether the original door could be used, you can. I don't believe, from my understanding of the building, I don't believe that the door is in a solid enough condition to withstand being constantly open and closed to accommodate deliveries. So that would be a concern that the historic fabric could be damaged by trying to use that door as a delivery door.
Why don't you ask the professional expert that has come here from Portland, Oregon to answer your questions?
Good idea.
He's waiting for you to ask him to come up. Please ask him. Please.
So this is about, you want to know why it's a roll-up door?
Well, when I was reading the information, there was a controversy over whether that door was needed or not. And I was just wanting a clarification from my point as to why we need the roll-up door instead of having the original doors there.
Well,
does it make any difference?
This kind of kicks into a question that I have too, is that the plan shows 3 new doors, correct?
Original. And now we do.
Well, the original figure, the approved historic plan for the apple barn shows 3 doors. So the original door gets wiped out in the plan. Then I'm looking at this page.
Yeah, but I had, let me see.
Anyway, what I'm saying is the plan as it was before today, or as it is before we act, shows 3 doors, correct?
Right.
Yes.
And the original door is gone.
You mean the original door to the historic building?
Yeah.
No, it's not gone. So if you look, I put up the slide, but so let's see, this door at the left is the door that's not being installed. Yeah. And you can see this in the original plan. Here's the sliding door here, and it's proposed to be retained. And in the proposed amendment, there's a condition actually modifying this. So what originally they had proposed to keep the door in the open position and then frame in this opening, but I changed the project to the condition that the door be retained in its closed position so that there would be no additional new siding required. So essentially this part of the elevation will appear as it did historically with the door in the closed position, resulting in fewer changes to the building.
Okay, what I'm saying is, should we not approve the plan? If we decided not to approve, what would happen?
Then the original historic preservation plan would be in effect. I don't know whether that would impede the ability of the applicant to use the grocery store for its intended purpose, which is, you know, part of the purpose of the rehabilitation plan.
But it would be more likely that there would be 3 doors instead of...
Yes. Yes, that's what was approved. So there would be more changes to that part
there
of the
would be 3 new doors.
Correct.
If we don't act, there'll be 3 new doors.
Correct. Correct.
So
2 doors are better.
Well, if we don't act, then there will be less historic fabric for the building.
Yes.
Than there is under the proposed amendment. So if we decide we don't want the proposed amendment, this building will lose more of its historic integrity.
Right.
Just wanted to make that point.
So now back to the fact whether it's a roll-up or it just opens. Is there some problem with the historical integrity if it's a roll-up door? Or is that because of the vendor wants to have a better opening? Yes.
I think it was...
Would you like to call the architect?
Would I like to do what?
Would you like to have the architect?
I would. Is he here?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Guy Altman, ORS Architects. We're architects for the tenant. It is preferable to have a roll-up door. This is a loading area for the building. Trucks come in, they deliver, they push trash out through this door. It needs to be a clear space that will allow pallets to be brought into the building from the trucks. A conventional storefront door like this would experience a little bit of damage. It's a conventional door. This gets it up out of the way. The jambs, the sides are protected in this type of application, and that is the purpose for that desired roll-up coil door.
So it would have nothing to do with the looks of the architectural part of the building. It would still look like an old-fashioned building, or pretty much so.
Well, as staff has pointed out, it's a functional utilitarian door that we painted out to match the adjacent wall surfaces. It'll have a matte finish, which has also been a staff recommendation based on what we're doing, what the landlord is providing for the new metal roofing on top of the building. So it's a modern door, necessitated by function, but it's designed just to complement what is adjacent to it.
Okay, I have no more questions.
I do have one more question. There was comments about the changing of the number of ramps. So there still will be one ramp there to qualify for ADA compliance.
That's correct. So that you only need the one ramp up to that area, and by just stepping down off the deck, that allows a greater area of the original loading area to be used as a deck.
Okay. Anything else about?
Does the ramp allow access for disabled people? Is
that's its primary intent?
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's a little safer.
Yes, shallower in pitch.
Any other questions on the 3 modifications? All right, then Do we have a motion to approve the proposed addendum to the mitigated negative declaration for the Aptos Village Project and approve the proposed amendment to the historic preservation plan
It is expired.
for the Heen Apple Barn?
It is expired.
Please, no comments from the audience.
Pipe down.
I'm just reminding you.
I don't, please.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, did someone make the first motion? I didn't hear.
Yes, it was Susie. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now we're moving on to agenda item number 4. This is informational. There will be no action items required. This is a review of the proposal for the reuse of historic floorboards and retention of historic wall construction at the interior of the Heen Apple Barn. And staff, you have a presentation?
Yes, thank you. This is a review of the proposal for the use of historic floorboards and retention of historic wall construction at the interior. The historic preservation plan for the Heen Apple Barn, approved by your commission, identifies the interior side of the single wall construction as a significant character-defining feature of the building. The rustic wood floorboards are identified as a contributing feature. The photo at the top shows the interior walls after removal of the interior wall covering that had been installed during the antique store phase, and the bottom photo shows the original historic floorboards. In the approved preservation plan, the existing raised floor system is being replaced by a concrete foundation in order to meet building code and engineering requirements to support the modern grocery store use and load requirements. Similarly, framed walls are being constructed at the building interior to meet seismic and health code requirements of the California Building Code. These new walls will cover the historic plank walls at the interior, recognizing that the retention of at least a portion of these historic materials is important to maintain this historic integrity and significance of the Apple Barn, but that their exact location and extent depends to a large extent upon the final store layout provided by the tenant in conformance with health code requirements. The approved preservation plan includes an area near the entrance with exposed historic walls and historic fir floorboards. The conditions of approval of the preservation plan require that the proposed extent and location of the historic floorboards and area of exposed single wall construction shall be at a minimum the amount provided in the historic preservation plan. The historic preservation plan includes 2 conditions relating to the floorboards and walls. Condition number 4, preservation of interior wood flooring. Existing wood floorboards at the building interior, identified as a character-defining feature, shall be used throughout the building to the greatest extent feasible as allowed under state codes and local environmental health regulations relating to the grocery store use. The texture and finish of existing floorboards shall be retained to the greatest extent feasible as consistent with relevant state codes and local regulations. Plans for the use of flooring shall be submitted to the HRC prior to issuance of the building permit. And condition number 5, preservation of interior single wall construction as an historic feature. Existing single wall construction at the building interior, identified as a character-defining feature, shown to be retained near the main entrance of the building, shall retain in other areas of the building as allowed under state codes and local environmental health regulations relating to the grocery store use. Plans for retention of single wall construction shall be submitted to the HRC prior to issuance of the building permit. So this shows the proposal in the approved preservation plan for the use of the historic floorboards and exposed single wall construction. The area of flooring is approximately 1,652 square feet near the building entrance only. And then the exposed single wall construction is approximately 125 linear feet near the entrance. In the tenant improvement plan submitted, there is a total of 1,652 square feet near the entrance, plus flooring, plus 90 square feet by the wine area, totaling approximately 1,742 square feet, a 40% increase from the approved preservation plan. It's to be specified matte finish with light sanding to retain the historic character of the floorboards. Limits on use of more flooring in the area include requirements for impervious surfaces for produce, refrigerated cases, and food prep areas as required by environmental health regulations. The area of exposed historic walls in the tenant improvement plans. This is approximately 127 linear feet of historic walls exposed in the interior, which is essentially the same as what was approved in the preservation plan. Limitations on further use of the single wall construction include seismic requirements where shear walls are required to for earthquake protection, and also there are health code requirements related to the grocery store use, including that washable surface be provided for the majority of the grocery store area. So after reviewing the proposal and discussions with the architect, staff believes that the proposed area of single wall construction complies with the conditions of approval of the preservation plan, and the proposed area of historic flooring exceeds the requirements of the preservation plan. Although health codes and the California Building Code limit the use of these historic materials and features throughout the store, the use of these materials at the entrance and near the wine sales area shown will allow for maximum visibility and appreciation by store visitors, along with interpretive displays near the entry explaining the construction methods of the over 100-year-old apple barn. Upon entering the store, visitors will see the barn interior structure much as it appeared historically, with the original interior single plank walls and wide fir floorboards visible at the entrance, and the impressive exposed barn roof framing visible throughout the building after the removal of the false ceiling. County staff welcomes any comments from your commission on the proposed extent and location of historic flooring and interior walls prior to taking action on the building permit for tenant improvements. Thank you.
Just one moment, I'm looking for my paperwork here.
If it would be helpful, I can pull up any of the previous slides as well.
Does the commission have any questions?
Well, it does look good to me. I'm quite pleased with the flooring. I went out there to take a look, and it was, I thought, very nice.
All right, then if the commission doesn't have any questions of the staff, we'll open this up for public comments.
Becky Steinbrunner, again, I want to point out to you that the historic preservation plan has expired. It expired in 2014, and under county code, no other permits, improvements, anything is allowed without a valid historic preservation plan. I just want to say that again, because I don't think you heard it, and I don't think you understand that this is a significant and powerful thing that you do have here. everything at this project hinges on a valid historic preservation plan. This project doesn't have one now. It expired. It expired in 2014. There was no building permit action at the site. The bike jumps were not destroyed until February 17th of 2015. There was nothing going on at this site until those jumps were demolished in 2015. The historic preservation plan expired 1 year before that happened. So you can't take any action today, legally. And no approvals can happen at any level. Everything that's going on out there is illegal right now because the historic preservation plan expired in 2014, and your board, your commission, did not bring it up for renewal at any time. I've checked all of your agendas. I've checked all of your minutes. It hasn't been discussed. So you can't take any other action legally. And I emphasize legally today. You do have a lot of power, and you do have the ability to, under a discretionary approval that you took earlier, to require environmental action. But you've got a historic preservation plan that has expired, and it's all illegal.
Could we have the staff go over that again? Because my memory is that the 2014 does not expire if there's continuing work. Maybe I was listening wrong. So I was wondering what the staff has got to say about that.
Planning staff has looked into whether has heard that comment raised by the public previously, and Wanda Williams, who's the assistant planning director, looked into that, and our determination was that there's a valid HPP for the project, and that it's valid to be before you today with previously the amendments to it and now discussion about another part of it. But that's a disagreement that exists. We believe there's a valid building permit for the site. The building permit has been has been implemented, and that there's a valid system of permits in place.
So if the preservation plan did expire, I'm just curious why we weren't notified.
What I'm thinking is maybe it would be appropriate to hear out this, finish any feedback you have on this, and if you would like the staff to report back on this particular issue to you at a future meeting, we can do that. It's a little bit difficult to do it because we don't have the dates and all of that here at this moment. But if that's what your commission would like, we can certainly do that.
Well, I'm confused because, I mean, I would think that if it expired, they would have some impact on something.
Yes, and we have looked at and determined that the historic preservation plan is in effect, has not expired, and has been exercised by the building permit.
So it has not expired.
Right.
Okay. And then we, I think, can proceed as if it has not expired.
I think that the commission should, and then let the planning department handle this.
Okay.
Carolyn, would you repeat that because I didn't hear it? What you just said.
You want me to remember what I just said? I'm sorry.
I do have my hearing aids in.
Yes, so
they don't work that well.
But I don't remember what I just said, so I'm sorry.
Well, I think her question was if it had expired, why would we have been notified? You know, if there had been something, you know, a permit or what requested, and it would have needed to come to us, there would have been a red flag or something that would have triggered it to come to us. But
I think what I last said was that we can and should proceed as if it has not expired, given the advice that's been given to us by staff.
Shouldn't you check? And this is an informational topic anyway. We're not voting on this.
Right. So, I mean, for the moment,
Could that be clarified?
Well, they might clarify it further. Staff might clarify it further in the future, but for now, given the information that we have and what they've given us, I think we can proceed as if it hasn't expired. And because this is an information, as you say, an informational item.
Okay.
Seems backwards.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments on the number 4, the floorboards and interior of the apple barn?
Yes, Gary Lindstrom, Aptos. This has to do with the historical integrity of the building. Is there any chance you could pull up the slide of the southern exposure of the building? Okay, it was my understanding that there was 2 sets of sliding doors on that. Maybe it's on the other building or whatever. But what I'm bringing up is in regards to the flooring, I've heard over and over again that they were able to keep a lot of it and they'll be able to reuse a lot of it. And I was just wondering if there is any of it left over. If they could not restore the barn doors on the outside of the building with that lumber. Again, the original building did have barn doors on the outside. They would still allow the sliding door with no problem, and it would be a good use of the flooring. Again, it's just all about historical integrity and keeping what we have available. Thank you.
Tom Stumbaugh, Aptos. Could you possibly pull up on the screen the interior that shows where that skylight is supposed to go?
Just pass that here.
This
No, the interior shot.
The photograph.
There you go. That's it. On the left.
Okay, just a second. If you look at that, you'll notice that it looks like that framework there was built after the fact, because look at the dark things on the underside of the roofing. That shows that there were boards there before, and those boards have been removed. Why? So that they can fake us into the idea that there used to be a skylight there? I don't think so. I do not believe it. Don't believe it.
Ed Silvera with Philip Brands 40. I just like to stress again the importance. When you put a industrial door, which will probably be gray or silver, it deters from the historical visual significance of the building that you recognize is so important. I think there could be some sort of arrangement that there's a modification. This is our concern, is when you have such a major door that looks industrial, that takes away from the history. It clowns it, as I said earlier. that it allows an opening for more of the same. When you allow this industrial major door, which I realize they may need for other trucks and moving stuff in. We've got numerous grocery stores in our neighborhood off Morrissey, several. So we're familiar with the doors and the trucks and all that. But the issue is that when you approve this industrial door, which will probably be aluminum or silver or whatever, what you're doing is you're allowing more of the same industrial look to deter from the historic look. And I really sincerely feel that you should really reconsider this while you can. Because it's not just you're thinking, oh, well, we're helping out the grocery store, run the grocery store. What you're doing is you're creating an opening for more of the same. And that's what happens. So I'm asking you again to reconsider. We're not saying you shouldn't put a door there, but we think they have the capability, on your recommendation, to keep it historic looking. I think they have the capability to do it. If they can't make the capability of putting a door that looks historic, it opens up a whole nother cans of what aren't they capable of doing. And if they can't make the first step here, it really is opening more of the same, of an industrial look that doesn't, corrugated tin along the sides, just things that don't, you're burying the history. So I'd like you to reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, just to make clear, this is an informational only. We're talking about the inside walls and the floorboards. And there's no vote being taken on this, no action.
I'd like to second what Ed Silvera said. We need to keep the historical look and not have it industrial. There's too much industrial stuff that doesn't go with the age of this barn and the historical look and preservation. And Becky, I'd like to relinquish my time if you have some more to say on this.
Thank you. I would like to, Becky Steinbrenner, I would like to bring to your attention that this historic building is going to be connected, physically connected, to a modern three-story building. And the earlier comment that a lot of these skylights and things are not going to be able to be seen, but they will, because there will be a three-story modern building right next to it, connected to it. So I really am grateful that the historic flooring and walls are going to be preserved. I'm really happy about that, and I do understand that because of modern health codes and building codes, it's limited in the ways that it can be used. But again, this is changing an historic building to suit modern uses, to suit vendor-driven requests. And the focus has seemingly moved away from primarily historic preservation to making it a building that's going to suit the vendor and suit the developer. So I just want to make that point clear. And again, remind you that the historic preservation plan has expired. But I applaud the efforts to use all of the historic materials that have been salvaged. What I would like to ask about is why the historic skirting has been put up on the exterior of the building this week before your board approved it or even discussed it. And that's an indication of what's going on out there. So thank you for preserving what can be preserved. I'm just pointing out that this building is being changed historically to suit the vendor, as was pointed out at your last April 10th hearing. These are vendor-driven changes, and that's come out in many of the testimonies here today. It's vendor-driven changes. Historical preservation is taking a back seat. And I remember when the building was, the preservation plan was approved, there was discussion about the effects of the NR3 rating of this a 125 some odd year barn to a modern 3-story structure, and there's supposed to be a transparent connector to maintain that visual separation, and I want to make sure that that stays, because that's why this was approved. I remember that. Ellen Peary specified that. Thank you.
I would just like to ask a question going back to the very first question that was asked, and maybe the construction foreman about the floorboards and about any usable floorboards that aren't being used, if they're being able to be utilized somewhere else, or what's being done with any leftover usable historic wood. Yes. Some of us are getting old here.
Well, thanks for the question. Amazingly, there's a lot of really good wood that came out of the building. Most of the bad wood in the building is what you see in some of the siding around the perimeters. Wherever we are making a new opening in the building, we've saved, in fact, one of the containers we have out there on site is solely for the purpose of storage, for that storage and protection of the siding from the original barn, so that when we go back to, oh, and by the way, just as a point of clarification, everything we're doing out there is permitted, including the skirting boards, including the blah, 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 whatever. We have a permit for the rehabilitation and moving of the barn, as Annie Murphy pointed out, and just want to make it clear that we want to start on a factual basis here. We have a variety. We had a variety of boards coming out of the flooring system of the building. There were two types of wood. There's Doug fir, what constituted almost all of the flooring at the top layer. There were some areas where from the time, some sort of second string redwood was used. A lot of it still had bark on it and so on and so forth, which was used as a sub-layer. So a lot of that was not salvaged, but all of the joisting boards, all of the girders, all of the beams, and I don't know what percentage, but probably 70% of the the better quality Doug fir was salvaged. So we've got ample amount of material to reproduce a flooring system in the building. We've got ample material to repair and replace siding as necessary under the watchful eye of Annie Murphy and Maya John Rowe from our historic architect. So I'm not sure, is that kind of, oh, and beyond that then, we have repurposed enough lumber to reproduce the entire loading dock decking. We'll also have enough lumber to produce the handrail systems for the ADA ramp. I'd like to clarify, also kind of tell a story a little bit better about that ramp. Now, I don't think that anyone's really complaining about the fact that we are increasing the size of that loading dock ramp. Why have we made that change? We made that change because we feel that it's better for everyone concerned. We will have on one side, on the, the west side, where the ramp will return into the connector building. It was brought up by one of the citizens. We will have a ramp that is more usable for the public. It leaves for a greater area for display of some of the historic pieces of the building, and then it allows for a set of stairs, which will be, again, give kind of a better access and flow to the area. At the same time, we will be maintaining a full ADA accessibility ramp. So that's where we'll be using a lot of that wood. The client, or our tenant, New Leaf Markets, has also kind of kept up with what materials we might have available later, and are intending to utilize materials from the barn in some of their grocery displays. Those won't be fully historic, rather they will just be using, the recycled wood from the project in some of their signage and so on and so forth. So those are some of the areas where we're using that wood. We may also have opportunities for park benches and that sort of thing as we move forward. I don't know that it's really necessary, but I don't think we've really truly identified why the amendment, going back to the amendment and the doors. If we could turn back to that for a second, Annie, I'd just like to make a couple points of clarification there. So that'll be the north elevation. Okay, so in the original historic plan above, done by Dutcher and Thompson, I don't know what year it was, I'm sure somebody knows. What nobody's taking into consideration is that those 3 doors you see are brand new doors. Those are the kind of doors you would walk through if you went into a Starbucks or any other, you know. So that, what I'm telling you is the doors above, those doors are about 12 feet high. They are aluminum, brand new aluminum and glass. Those have no historical significance whatsoever. Those are, you know, I'm surprised that those were allowed, honestly, in the beginning. What you see below, to the left, is the historic building being left alone altogether. In other words, no changes being made. Rather, we are reviving, maintaining the historic presence on that side. The door in the middle, as you see, yes, that is a roll-up door. Had there been roll-up doors at the time this building was used as an apple barn, it would have been a roll-up door. Who knows? There might have been a wood slat roll-up door at some point. But what we're doing in this rendering is we're maintaining the original historic rolling door, leaving it in place. If you notice above in the approved plan, that door got thrown away. So again, we're adding to the integrity. Now, the whole subject of purposing a building for a tenant, well gosh, somebody's got to use the building. The building was purposed for the last tenant, namely the antique store, by way of, you know, lots of little walls, and there was nothing historical inside the building in its past life. I mean, all the walls were completely covered up. We feel like what we're doing now is exposing much of the building. And then as far as the smaller door to the right side, that door being blended out, I mean, keep in mind that door protrudes a total of 4 feet above the original wall. So in other words, given that we have a 3-foot wainscot there, that door is virtually invisible once all the siding has been repaired and so forth. So I'm not saying this, you know, as a point of contention. Rather, I'm trying to explain that we really do truly feel that the rendering there and what we have intended is far better than what was approved, and from a historical standpoint. So anyway, so that's that about that. As far as the skylight, you know, if we were in another discussion and we were to come to you with a plan without a skylight, chances are somebody would be mad at us for not putting a skylight in. So that's, I mean, frankly, the tenant and ourselves, I mean, it's a quality of life. Everyone knows that there were skylights in buildings like that. If, you know, it becomes a really big deal putting a skylight in the building, well, the heck with it. Let's just use more energy and put in some lights. I mean, it's not really a sensible argument, in my opinion. So, any other questions for me?
Does any of the commissioners have any questions?
Yeah, we have comment.
Pardon?
We have comments.
Oh, comments. Sorry. I should say questions or comments.
Oh, well, we have a chance to comment after the public.
I'll bring it back to the commission.
May I make one small remark?
Yes.
Can you go back to that slide again? Just wanted to point out what
which
you're
one?
talking about. The north elevation there. As you can see here, there's a sliding door on the left building.
Yes.
Okay. What I'm talking about is reproducing another sliding door, barn door, like that would cover the space of the roll-up door with the lumber from the old flooring within the building. Okay? That way, when the door is not in use, the rolling barn door can be put over it, and it would give it a nice look, and again, help with the integrity of the building. I don't even know for sure, I haven't talked to the architect or anything. I don't know if a barn door can be used instead of the rolling door. I don't know all the aspects of the building and what the codes are and everything else. But if a sliding barn door could be used instead of the roll-up door, then that solves the problem. If it can't be used, then a sliding barn door to go over it when the door is not in use, is very simple, and it doesn't have to be a locking door. No one's going to go up there and fool around with a sliding door. So, here.
This is an existing door. I mean, that door is there.
Right. Is it going to remain there?
Yes, you've already taken action on that item.
Is it going to?
It could be pushed
Yeah,
over there, but
okay.
that's a fire department.
They can push
But
it
the
offline,
door
but we have
doesn't-
it.
it's still-
Excuse me. That, dealing with the doors, that has already been voted and approved. Now, if there wants to be an offline discussion with the architect and the representative from the construction company and the public, and then I imagine come to staff with an amendment, then that can certainly be done. But
It was just concerning using the old lumber. That's what I'm talking about. I don't want to see any of it wasted.
totally, we totally agree with that. But at this point, it's like a new amendment that needs to be brought to the board after working with the architect and so on.
If I just may make a comment as well, I'd like to caution against the idea of sort of creating a historic looking door that wasn't there. That creates a false sense of historicism that's not consistent with the standards. So I would be concerned about that concept in terms of complying with the standards and protecting the historic significance of the barn.
But it's my understanding that the door's already there.
Again, that amendment has been already voted on, and we're past that. And number 5 is we're taking no action on it. It was information only. So if there's no more comments, then I will adjourn this meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a comment.
I have a comment. Just to explain a little background of how we've dealt with the project since the beginning. Thinking back to 2009 and referencing comments about things being changed to suit the vendor and keeping the historic look. I mean, it's really great to hear people interested in keeping the historic look, because at that time in 2009, when we first began to consider what was going to happen, we were told, if I'm not mistaken, the reason that according to Secretary of Interior standards, you can move a structure if it's threatened with demolition. And that was one of the reasons that we were asked to approve the move for the apple barn. And some of what we heard from the developer at the time was they didn't know if it could be moved, they didn't know if it would survive, and it didn't have any use. It was inferred that there was no reason to keep it as part of the project if an appropriate use was not found. So that put a little pressure on us when we were considering it, because we were very grateful that the building was going to be saved. And we had to sort of take the risk of having it moved and hoping it could be preserved. So now here we are, and it's been moved, and the chances are it's going to be preserved. And finding an appropriate use for a building whose use has apparently run out, I think is a vital part of historic preservation. If you don't have an appropriate use for a structure, the chances of saving it are not very good. Thinking of the Redmond House, just for instance. Oh yeah, Brisbane Mansion, too. So I think we're lucky that something like New Leaf is working compromises.
Any other comments? All right, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting at 12 noon. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn, and
A second.
All right. We are in adjournment at 12 noon. Thank you, everyone.